At a number 10 spot, we have the Torch Lake Monster. This one is pretty much well known all over Michigan, but for those who don't know, the tale of the Torch Lake Monster dates back to the early 1960s and 70s. Obviously, it takes place in Torch Lake, which is located in North Michigan, and it also is the second largest lake in the state. A fisherman and coach by the name of Dave Foley is credited with spotting the creature first and telling the stories of it since he worked by the lake for a while. Legend goes that the giant creature has a lizard's body, the head of a cat, one brown eye, and one blue eye, along with slimy green skin. The lake is approximately 285 feet deep, which makes what lies underneath much more scary and worrisome. Nighttime is when this creature is said to arise from the depths. At this time, many swimmers and boats go missing, only to wash ashore with no evidence of its demise. At a number 9 spot, we have the Singing Sands of Beat Grist. Located just past Lac La Belle, Michigan, is a beautiful white sandy beach known as Beat Grist. In a direct translation, this means gray beast, and that's because a large gray creature was said to have inhabited the area many years ago, but that's not even the story I'm going to talk about. Local legends claim that the pure white sand of the beach sings by pressing down your palms on it, or it barks when you strike it. The sound is said to be the voice of a Native American maiden who lost her lover when he drowned in the Great Lakes, and now she calls him on shore. The sand is said to lose its magical singing power when it's removed from the beach. Now visitors claim to hear the singing sounds, but as many try to bring the sound back home, they are met with years of unlimited bad luck, which lead many to bring it back to the beach to allow it to sing again. Other than sand that makes sounds, at a number 8 spot with the Belle Isle's Lady in White. In Detroit, Michigan, there's an island called Belle Isle. This 982-acre island is used for picnics, hikes, and home of the only marble lighthouse. Other than that, everything else on this island is shrouded in mystery and up for speculation. Legend of the island follows the story of a chief's daughter and a haunting bridge. The chief was concerned that his daughter's beauty would attract vast amounts of suitors, so to combat this, he made a deal with the snake goddess of the island. The chief asked the goddess to protect his daughter. The goddess would agree, but not for nothing. She would ask for the daughter to live out the rest of her days on the island to protect it, never being able to leave it. And to this day, the daughter is said to stay on this island and walk it, with many visitors reporting that she would try to lure them into the forest by telling them that she is looking for someone and just needs help. She supposedly takes her victims to the bridge to drown them, and it's said that if you go on this bridge and honk 3 times, she will appear just before your eyes. At number 7 spot with the Nain Rouge. It's said that since the city of Detroit was founded in Michigan, bad luck has befallen the area. This is all because of the devilish red imp known as the Nain Rouge had cursed the entire city. Local folklore suggests that the Detroit's founder, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, was warned by a fortune teller that he would come face to face with the Nain Rouge and to treat him with the utmost respect and attention. Except this information came straight this ear and right out the other, because when he finally met with this creature, he hit it with his crane and told it to stay out of his way. This is when the angry Nain Rouge cursed the city of Detroit and Cadillac. Shortly after this, Cadillac would lose his fortune and move back to France, but misfortune still occurred in the city. It's said that in all of the disastrous events that happened in Detroit, the Nain Rouge could be spotted just before all of them. For example, in 1763, 50 British soldiers perished from Native Americans, after which the Nain Rouge could be seen dancing in the aftermath in joy. Then in the surrender of the war in 1812, the Nain was blamed again for its presence. It had also been seen during Detroit's riots of 1967 and 1976's ice storm that caused electricity to go out for days. At a number 6 spot with the Masonic Temple. Currently standing as the largest Masonic temple in the world, it also stands as one of the most haunted places in all of Michigan. The temple, designed by George D. Mason, is an imposing Gothic structure at the corner of Bagg Street, later Temple Street, and 2nd Avenue across from Cass Park. The temple has over 1,000 rooms, secret stairways, and concealed passages, but unfortunately Mason would go a little too far in this construction, where it would cause him to go bankrupt, eventually losing his wife in the process. His depression slowly kicked in, and then he would jump off the roof of this temple to his death, and to this day security guards claim to see old George's ghost climbing those steps to the rooftop. Visitors also reported many noises such as doors and windows being slammed shut. They also see moving shadows and experience cold spots all around the area, all while feeling as if they're being watched by something. Right in the hub of our list, we have the Michigan Triangle. Well, guess Michigan has their own version of Bermuda's Devil Triangle, and it contains just as much unexplained phenomena as Bermuda. The triangle goes from Manawak, Wisconsin to Ludington to Benton Harbor in Michigan. It was in early spring 1937 when Captain Donner was just managing his freighter ship called the OS McLaughhlin through these icy waters. He was so tired, so he decided to go to sleep and asked for one of the crewmates to wake him up when they approached shore. As they did, they noticed his room was locked, so they looked around, but nothing. They then kicked the door down and found that he vanished with no signs whatsoever. Now the triangle claims the lives of many ships and planes just like Bermuda. People have also cited the OS McLaughhlin, but as they try to get a closer look, it disappears into the waters. An odd thing about this place is when that divers go to check the wreckages of ships and planes, they notice that everything is still intact, including the bodies of the deceased and the ship as a whole. This is by far the scariest triangle because there is no way around it other than land. So basically there's no point in traveling in Michigan's Great Lakes. At our number 4 spot is Hell's Bridge. Back in the early 1900s, an old deranged man named Elias Frist led a group of kids to the bridge and proceeded to murder each and every single one of them, slowly throwing them into the river below. Eventually he was caught and hung by the townspeople. Before he passed away, he made a confession claiming that he did this because he was possessed by the devil and they told him to do it. To this day, a lot of visitors to the bridge hear the screams and the cries from the children just before they pass away. People have also said that when they get home from this place, they find bruises on their body as if someone was reaching out to grab them or hit them. The worst part is that if you walk on this bridge at night, you can feel hands below you as if they're grabbing you from the river below. And at the end of the bridge, you might encounter Elias as a dark figure with glowing eyes, so you won't miss him in the dead of night. In more lesser known news, apparently you're able to sell your soul to the devil by meeting the devil in the middle of this bridge. I mean, it's called Hell's Bridge. What else did we expect? At our number 3 spot, we have the Dogman. The Dogman is described as a 7-foot tall, amber-eyed, bipedal, canine-like creature, and he has the head of a dog with the body and torso of a human. Ever since its original sighting in 1887, many more sightings were spotted all over Michigan. It's primarily spotted in the northwestern quadrant of the Lower Peninsula. Back to its original sighting back in 1887. This is when the Dogman was discovered by 2 lumberjacks who saw this creature in the distance. Things got a little more concerning when in 1937, Robert Forney was attacked by 5 wild dogs, describing that of one of the dogs allegedly stood up like a bipedal and was significantly larger than all the other dogs. This legend got more popular when disc jockey Steve Cook recorded a song called The Legend, which describes the Michigan's Dogman. Although the artist claims it was made for an April Fool's joke, this kickstarted the entire legend and sightings of the Dogman would only rise after the song was released. At a number 2 spot with Melon Head. Locals fear of humanoids called the Melon Heads. First theorized in the 1970s, Melon Heads are said to be completely bald with misshapen bulbous heads, deformed arms and legs, teeth like daggers, and luminous red eyes. Legend goes that Melon Heads reside around Felt Mansion, which is home to Dora Felt, who is an American inventor. The Melon Heads were said to be the children suffering from hydrocephalus, which causes your head to expand in some cases. They were located at the Junction Insane Asylum near the home, and it's said that they endured months and months of abuse, and that one day they decided to escape and run into the forests of Michigan, where they became animal-like and very feral. Many of these Melon Heads are said to be looking for the doctor who failed to care for them in order to take his life. At a number 1 spot, we have Alois Psychiatric Hospital. Located in Westland, Michigan, it was named after Detroit's postmaster Alois Davik. In 1839, it started as a poorhouse and a farm where the poor, the sick, and the needy would go for shelter and work. As time went on, the poorhouse transitioned into a psychiatric asylum and hospital. The buildings were self-sufficient, even having their own police. They were even one of the first hospitals in the world to use x-rays for diagnosis, so at least one good thing came out of here. At its peak, the place housed over 10,000 patients and over 2,000 staff members. After its closure in 1984, the hospital's abandoned grounds are said to have a few patients still left inside of it. Ghost patients, that is. There have been reports of people finding medical waste and other strange items. Some have reported finding jars containing human body parts, as well as documents outlining strange medical procedures. At number 10 spot, we have the walking statue of Augusta Bittner. In the northeastern part of Lancaster lies the Lancaster Cemetery. While the cemetery is massive and has hundreds of tombstones, one particular memorial sticks out to all guests who visit, and this is the tombstone of Augusta Bittner. The statue itself is gorgeous in an artistic standpoint, but I can definitely see why people fear the statue at night. And many visitors to the cemetery claim to see the statue walking across the grounds. The apparition is said to have flaming green eyes swollen with tears that seem to be trapped in a state of death, searching relentlessly for answers. Story goes that Augusta Bittner married a man named Stanley Tevis on May 3rd, 1905. They would eventually move to Philadelphia, where Augusta gave birth to their first daughter, Sylvia. Everything seemed to be going well until their first anniversary. Augusta fell ill to typhoid and passed a horrible death. So basically within 13 months, Augusta married, had a baby, and passed away. Her parents then spent a fortune on her tombstone, and over 100 years later, it's still standing strong and beautiful. Except for the fact it walks around crying. Yeah, no thanks. At a number 9 spot, we have the Clifton 5 Theater. This place was built in the mid-1850s and is still running to this day. The Clifton 5 Theater, formerly known as a Hunting Dawn Opera House, was so large that the street level had to be raised a total of 4 feet to accommodate it. And it was also a place where Freemasons would have meetings in secret. It wasn't until 1901 where the largest fire in Huntington's history burned down the theater. This fire saw the end of at least one person. Then in 1921, a man named Andy Gamble purchased the theater only to be met met with yet another fire. Eventually, a man named Blackbird bought the business and named it Clifton, which is named after his son who passed away in the military. And ever since, people have claimed to witness all sorts of creepy things. Visitors cite the lady in red ghost, who is believed to be a person who is well off, wearing a scarlet dress, walking up and down the stairways. When people get too close to her, they claim to hear her whisper Lolita. Perhaps a daughter? No one really knows. At number 8 spot, we have the house on Ridge Avenue. In the north side of Pittsburgh lies in what is known as the house the devil built. The house is actually 1129 Ridge Avenue and known as the Conglier House. It was built in the 1860s by Charles Conglier, who lived in the house with his wife Lida and their maid Essie. The maid and Charles would be having a secret affair, and soon after, the wife overheard what was happening, so she collected a knife and proceeded to murder the two. She would be found later humming lullabies as she rocked on her chair. Then in 1900, Dr. Adolf purchased the home. One day, the neighbors heard a woman screaming in the house and called the police. Once the cops arrived, the doctor was nowhere to be found, but instead there was only a body of a woman with no head. Then a single mother and her 5 children lived there in the 1920s, until a nearby natural gas tank exploded and killed the mother, causing the 5 children to be left abandoned. Although the tale is said to be fabricated, many of these stories are actually true. At number 7, we have the Squonk. When I saw this guy, I couldn't help but laugh. And the only reason I added him on this list was because he was a mythical creature, and come on, he's terrifyingly cute and ugly at the same time. The Squonk is a pig hybrid that almost has decaying skin that is covered in warts. Its tusks are yellow and crooked with cauliflower ears, looking like any MMA fighter. It appears to be crying because it just thinks it's ugly, which is just so freaking sad. I kinda wanna just give it a hug. Except if you try, hunters claim that the creature turns into a puddle of tears. A man named J.P. Wentling was said to have captured the Squonk in a bag. Once he went to go show everyone, the thing that remained was only the liquid of the creature. Some believe the Squonks can predict the future and will accept something in exchange for this. However, since they are pessimistic creatures, only the bad parts of your future will be mentioned. So this is basically like having a fortune teller who just hates their life. At number 6 spot, with Albowitch. In the forest of Columbia, Pennsylvania is a 4-foot tall hairy creature known as the Albowitch. Their name is just short for apple snitch, since they are known to be snatching apples left and right like they're trying to miss a day at the doctor's. People who walk along the Susquehanna River claim to have these small creatures violently throw apples at them to push them away from their homes. Their homes are said to be on top of the treetops where they would only come down to gather apples. These hairy humanoids are often mistaken as Bigfoot since they're also reported around the area. What if these guys are just Bigfoot children? This would explain their small stature at least. Despite the fact that these creatures are not likely to cause death, getting apples thrown at you aggressively doesn't sound too appealing either. In the hump of our list, we have the Appalachian Trail. From Maine all the way to Georgia, the Appalachian Trail is a 2,200-mile stretch that is also the longest hiking only trail in the world. This place is known for its beauty. Every mile is filled with fresh sights and breathtaking views. But when you have this much of inhabited land, some things are bound to happen to those visiting the area. Many hikers who have trekked this path have shared their haunting stories online for those to see, and it's crazy the amount of stories I read. So many it almost seems like it isn't a coincidence. Some have mentioned encountering the mountain people while on their hike, saying that they protect their camps with extreme violence and they have a tent-like city within these trails. Apart from the mountain men, the trail has had over 10 homicides. The first one happened in 1974 in Georgia and 3 in Pennsylvania. Then in 1990, a double murder took place at the top of Cove Mountain located within Pennsylvania. A young 25 and 26-year-old couple was shot and stabbed to death by a wanted criminal. The details of this crime are horrific, so I probably won't mention the specifics here. At a number 4 spot, we have No Face Charlie. If you grew up in the 1950s and 60s in western Pennsylvania, chances are you heard the legend of the Green Man or No Face Charlie. The legend says that No Face Charlie would stalk the remote streets at night and sometimes chase others away from him. No disrespect, but if I saw him at night, I would definitely be running the other way. No Face Charlie was actually based on a real man named Raymond Robinson. His story is pretty tragic. In 1919, Robinson was only 8 years old when he was reaching for a bird's nest at the top of an electrical pole when he was suddenly shocked with 11,000 volts of electricity. He was severely injured. His nose, lips, and ears, and also eyes were all gone or misshapen. And on top of that, one of his hands were completely blown off. This is what gave him this image that appears haunting for others. Raymond was in fact a really kind and friendly individual, but others feared him and would give him this negative stigma regardless of how he really was on the inside. He has now since passed, and I hope he's finally accepted for who he is. At number 3 spot, we have Blue Mist Road. Blue Mist Road is actually named Irwin Road, and locals claim that you can see a blue mist covering the entire road at night. Back in the 1800s, it was a dirt road, and even to this day, it still remains unpaved. The road has way too many tragic stories to tell you in one single single point, but let me tell you a few of these. This place has a very dark history to it. Legends claim that a witch lived on this road who used to practice black magic, including rituals and human sacrifice. A family lived here, and one day the husband came home in a trance-like state and murdered his entire family. At number 2 spot, we have Anna Baker's dress. This dress belonged to Anna Baker, who was a part of a wealthy family located in Altoona, Pennsylvania. They would reside in what is known now as the Baker Mansion in 1849. The same year, Anna fell in love with a man and planned to get married, but her father Elias was like, no, that's not happening. It's believed he said no because he was part of a different social class. He didn't want this marriage to happen so bad he even got the man banished from the town. Anna was heartbroken and begged her dad, but her dad kept saying no. She then went out of her way to buy her own dress, the one in the photo, and showed her father, and he was still very adamant on the decision to say no. So in spite of her father, she was never married even after his death. Fast forward to 1922, all the members of the Baker family passed away, and the mansion had been bought up by the Blair County Historical Society and turned into a museum. In the museum, guests report seeing the glass of the dress being shaken violently. Others report seeing a woman apparition in a black dress staring into this display. Perhaps it's Anna from the grave, but we'll never know. At number 1 spot, we have the Devil's Road. Yup, nothing good about this one. Night Shyamalan filmed his 2004 horror film The Village in a nearby field because this creepy area just north of the Delaware border is so infused with ghostly tales. Rumor has it that a white house hidden in the wood on Devil's Road, officially named Cosart Road, was home to the family of the DuPonts, a wealthy family who resorted to inbreeding to keep their fortune within the family. The cult house, as it was known, was used to perform incestuous marriages and to conceal deformed offspring. The trees in the area have a dramatic bend away from the house, as if they're attempting to flee away from it. Coming in at number 10, we have 13 Curves. This is a very dangerous road in Marcellus, New York, named the 13 Curves. Over the past 60 years since its construction, this road claimed the lives of many drivers from unfortunate accidents. None are more notorious than the story of a couple on their wedding day. Drivers claim they see a young woman dressed in a bloody white wedding gown walking along the road looking for her groom. All of the accidents on this road are said to be associated with this one woman, since many of the survivors of these accidents claim that the last thing they saw before crashing was in fact this woman in white. This story is very similar to La Llorona if you guys remember my past videos. That is in the Texas video. How the woman passed away in the first place remains a complete mystery, but some claim that on their wedding night the couple drove on these winding roads, but on one of the curves they lost control and ended up in a nearby creek, with both of them passing away. Other drivers claim that they enter into their cars, and many of them become startled and crash when they look in their rearview mirror to see this bloody apparition. At a number 9 spot, we have the Fordham University Spirit Story. Before we begin, scenes from The Exorcist were shot here, so it was probably for good reason since they wanted to shoot a horror film at this university filled with the supernatural. In the summer of 2003, RAs in the place noticed that in one room the beds were propped up rather than lying on the floor. It wasn't until one day an RA awoke from knocking on his door. When he opened it, he saw a Jesuit priest who said he would take care of the mattresses. Except when the RA tried to figure out who the priest was, he discovered that the only Jesuit priest bearing that description had passed away 10 years ago. That's not all the ghosts within this university. It's said that the spirit of a little girl who has been seen in the bathrooms is said to lurk and peek behind the shower curtains. Many other students revealed that they had sleep paralysis when inside the dorms, even though they had no such thing prior. Lastly, other students report being woken up due to the feeling of someone grabbing their neck and tugging their legs as if someone wants to drag them. At a number 8 spot, we have Rochester's White Lady. There's a white lady scary urban legend in almost all cultures, so I had to mention one in New York as well. In Eastman Durham Park, visitors claim to see a crying woman asking where her daughter is. The story goes that in the early 1800s, a woman named Elisa lived in the area with her farmer husband. After a seemingly good start to their new home in Rochester, tragedy struck when Elisa's daughter suddenly disappeared. The story of her disappearance varies, but the most popular one is that the daughter asked Elisa if she can walk to the lake, but she never ended up returning. Regardless of what version you believe, the result is the same. People see the white lady roam the perimeters of the lake, constantly wailing and asking for the location of her daughter. People claim that she is more aggressive towards men, but appears as more heartfelt and sorrowful for women. This could be because women are more likely to assist her in finding her daughter, but much of it is unknown. At a number 7 spot, we have the White Horse Tavern. This tavern was established all the way back in 1673, making it America's oldest tavern, as you can see from the sign in the front of the building. During the 18th century, the owner of the bar was reported to be a pirate and rum smuggler, and when the British authorities were hunting for him, he hid out in this tavern during the Revolutionary War and brought in many other soldiers with him, where a lot of them would pass away in that tavern. The most activity in the tavern is said to be located on the second floor in the master bedroom. Story goes that a young girl passed away from smallpox in that room, and many guests hear the little girl singing, and some workers claim they see a little girl running around with a lemon and lime knife looking to attack unsuspecting victims. And remember that pirate owner I mentioned? Yeah, he would end up murdering someone in that very room, but that's all up for speculation still. Regardless, the world's oldest tavern had to have a few of their own ghost stories. At our number 6 spot, we have the Rolling Hills Asylum. Located in East Bethany, New York, this asylum was originally named the Genesee County Poor Farm. A poorhouse is a place where orphan children, families, the elderly, and where physically and mentally handicapped people go. All the people who passed away at the asylum were buried on the property grounds, which led many people to believe to be haunted throughout the entire area. The favorite entity spotted there is called Roy Crouse. The owner had an encounter with Roy the ghost. One day she went in and a rat went across the room. The rat startled her, and then she went to scream and then left the asylum. The next day when she came back, she noticed a rat that startled her was found dead on the stairs with blood oozing out of it. Above that was a bloody handprint, presumably with the blood of the rat. She believes it was Roy helping her, as the rat scared her pretty bad. Right in the hump of our list, we have the Curse of 1940. The Curse of 1940, or the Dutton's Curse, was a hex that was believed to cause NHL's New York Rangers not to win a Stanley Cup between 1941 all up until 1993. For all you non-hockey fans, the New York Rangers were very successful in their early years when they took 3 Stanley Cups, 1928, 1933, and 1940. After a 54-year wait, they won another Stanley Cup in 1994, but many fans believe the reason they haven't touched gold in so long is because of this curse. This was because in the 1939-40 season, the mortgage of the Madison Square Garden, which is the place where the Rangers played, was paid off, which led to management to burn the entire mortgage in the bowl of the cup. This led many to believe that the hockey gods put a curse on them. For example, in the 1950 Stanley Cup Finals, the Rangers had to play in the Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto for their home ice, which could be related to the fact that the MSG burned their mortgage, forcing them to play in another city, hence why they didn't win that year. I know sports curses are not scary at all, but for New York Rangers fans, this is the most terrifying thing they heard all year. At our number 4 spot, we have Palmyra Historical Museum. As the name suggests, this museum is located in Palmyra, New York. This building is thought to be over 200 years old and once served as a tavern and a hotel. It is now open to the public as a museum, but there's a reason why this one is on the list. The story goes that 6 days before Christmas 1964, a fire raged a small home which had Ruth Anna Breeden, her husband Paul, and 6 children inside. It was a supposed flash fire which engulfed the entire house quickly. The husband managed to escape, but the mother and her 6 children were found burnt in the basement underneath a mattress. Although the fire didn't happen in the museum per se, it sits on the home's foundation, meaning the basement is the exact same. This is why many guests claim to catch the scent of ash in the basement, because this is where the woman and her children lost their life. In the museum, guests also report toys being flown off shelves and even feeling their hair and clothes being tugged on. All the way at our number 3 spot, we have Vale Cemetery. After being opened in 1857, the historic Vale Cemetery became the largest cemetery in Schenectady, New York. After many years, guests will report some pretty eerie paranormal activity going on inside the cemetery. Many people had come forward, all reporting the same phenomenon, saying that the statues would bleed from their eyes. It's very important to note that all the people that came forward were not related in any sort of way, making all these accounts really genuine. Other people visiting the cemetery also claim that they've seen figures sitting in the trees above the tombstones, and even full-blown apparitions of crying ghosts. The cemetery now has a total of 33,000 assigned plots, making it a spiritual hub. At our number 2 spot, we have the ghost ship of the Hudson River. Back when New York was just a small village, reports surfaced of a spooky ship floating on the river. Seen at dusk on foggy days, many say it was the spirit of the Henry Hudson's Half Moon ship. One of the reports came from an anonymous source of the weather dork that they referred to as Samuel. He was spending the day fishing on the shore of the Hudson, but then an odd ship caught his gaze. He claimed the ship was floating on air above the water, but as the ship got closer to him, he found that it had no crew on deck and had 3 empty masts. Regardless of the fact that it was floating, the ship could only be heard when it got closer, and the wood would be creaking as if it was on water when it wasn't. Eventually, a storm came and slowly brought the ship back into the river, slowly disappearing into the darkness and the rain. If you listen to this story and get some Flying Dutchman vibes, you're right. All the way at our number 1 spot, we have the Amityville Horror House. It all started with an invitation from a news anchorman in Long Island. All the Warrens knew that there was a tragedy inside of the home, and the owners left after only living at the home for little less than a month. After Ed Warren spoke to the owner of the home, George Lutz, he quickly agreed to have them investigate. George was so horrified by the house that he only left the keys to the house and completely left the area. When the Warrens were in the house, they described feeling a powerful negative energy, calling it, quote, diabolically infested. Ed then entered the basement and felt immediate pressure, which pinned him on the floor. He commanded to Jesus Christ to leave, and it lifted it off of him. This was no regular paranormal case. The Warrens were unaware that 6 people were murdered in that home 7 months ago, where Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family in that one night. Well, these are the top 10 New York scary urban legends. What do you guys think about this list? Leave a like and a comment down below. I'm your host Andrew, and I hope you guys have a scary day.